Yeah, I always forget to unmute my mic. What's up, Amazon sellers? Welcome back to the Sunday edition of the weekly Amazon news and Q&A show. We're going to share some e-commerce news, some stats, the occasional business maxim, answer your questions about selling on Amazon. So if you got a question about retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, wholesale, or a Keepa quandary, drop it in the chat, and I'll do my best to get you the help that you're looking for. If you're new here, my name is Chris Rasick. I am your solo host today. Chris Grant is out this Sunday evening, so I will be flying solo with you. But I got plenty of news and bring some questions. I'll bring a ton of news, and we can figure this whole thing out together. So I hope you're doing well. Old vid. Yeah. Artem, there wasn't a studio set up for this. So yeah, I didn't figure that part out. I got here about 5 minutes early and had to build the whole studio from scratch. So I have this may come as a shock to you, but I have no idea what I'm doing. so if things are messed up, that's on me. Yet should be no surprise to anyone. So what's up, Nate? Yeah, I was. Yeah, if you can throw looks like you're on YouTube. If you can throw the link in there, let them know that I'm an idiot, but I am live. That'd be much appreciated. Got a handful of people here, so it's in maybe a channel or two correctly. At least we got that going. So, all right. So, not familiar, this is how it works. I'm going to start with some news. I will check in between news segments, see if there are any questions. I'll get those answered. We can talk about anything that you want to talk about. I scoured the latest, what I think is newsworthy or at least semi-interesting, that I'll share with you here. What's up, Damon? Good to see you. So first story that I wanted to talk about is it was actually released from Amazon. So we'll keep that in mind as we go through this. But it has to do with Amazon's AI war on fakes and counterfeits. It's getting pretty serious. So Amazon's first trustworthy shopping experience report reveals that AI systems that can predict counterfeiting attacks before they can happen, and it explained what this means for legitimate sellers. Amazon's AI predicted a bad actor attack on a viral product 8 days before the brand owner even shared their IP with Amazon. That's proactive, not reactive, right? A bit of fortune telling there from the AI. The AI watches social media trends. It analyzes product patterns and essentially games out which items will get ripped off. They said since 2020, Amazon's counterfeit crimes unit has pursued 32,000 bad actors across 14 countries. In 2025 alone, 15 million counterfeit products were disposed of. Over 100 websites were shut down, all for facilitating fake reviews and scams. So what does this have to do with us? Why is this newsworthy for sellers? You know, if you're sourcing trending products from social media or monitoring those, Amazon's AI may flag legitimate inventory. That's a risk that we run into if it matches these prediction patterns. As always, documentation is critical. That really never changes. Amazon's not fighting counterfeits anymore. They're trying to predict them. They're going Minority Report on these counterfeits. So you need to make sure that you're on the right side of it. This is a positive. I in my opinion. You know, the more legitimate that Amazon can make their marketplace, the better off we are, because the customer is looking at Amazon products and Amazon inventory as more trustworthy. You know, we certainly, bad things would happen if Amazon became a marketplace known for counterfeits. You know, I don't think we're going to be able to AI our way out of the disgruntled customer, you know, that simply has some sort of idea on what exactly the product should look like and or lies about it because they want to return something. They want to get their money back, and they're hoping that they don't have to return the item, but get a refund anyway by saying that it's counterfeit in the comments, right? I mean, it's tough to tough to eliminate all of the bad actors. However, this is a good step. This is if we can take it at face value, take it for what it's worth, and take Amazon's word, which I know I can hear some chuckles in the background. I understand that, but at face value, this is pretty impressive as far as the numbers go. So yes, they're predicting it before it even makes it to the platform. Yeah, they said the one example that they said was 8 days before the brand owner even shared their IP with Amazon. So yeah, that's pretty good. So we'll keep an eye on that. Good news on that front. Another topic that we want to see Amazon successfully fight, because Amazon getting this part right is good for us. Not only counterfeits, but also returns. There's some news on returns as well. The story is logistics is shifting from reactive to predictive here as well, not just in the counterfeits. And it's about to make your inventory velocity a lot more reliable, hopefully. So here's how I'll break it down. The old model was they monitor packages, they find problems when delays happen, they scramble to fix it, right? The new model that they're trying to perfect is AI spots bottlenecks in real time and reroutes before customers know something went wrong. And I'll give you an example here. Regional station hits bottleneck. Instead of delays, the system instantly reroutes incoming shipments to nearby facilities that have the capacity to take these shipments. Drivers will get updated routes, and therefore the problem solved before it becomes a problem, right? So again, this is the theme. We're doubling up on this theme, this predictive problem solving, right? Retailers can cut missorting by 70% using micro-sectoring and advanced address correction. What's up, Luke? The impact to us, obviously, more predictable inventory movement means better sales velocity forecasting, fewer mystery BSR drops potentially, and more accurate inventory planning. Predictable logistics a lot of times equal predictable sales velocity, and that can have a positive impact on inventory and the planning that goes with it. It is future is getting very precise, which has a certain creepiness to it, Artemy, right? All right, so you want to bring back up, we want to rip the scab off of the fuel surcharge. I thought the funny joke when they announced the temporary fuel surcharge, which is going to last all year, they predicted. I couldn't help but think about all of the electric trucks that they have. And my sarcastic joke was, imagine what the fuel surcharge would have been if they weren't delivering in electric trucks. I understand there's fossil fuel vehicles being used in the supply chain. But I just thought it was a funny joke. But there are more electric trucks. Amazon has a partnership in place. Amazon made a deal with a Swedish company called Einride, and it's electric trucks. Could be a big impact on the future of freight economics. Amazon made a deal for 75 electric heavy-duty trucks to join Amazon's relay network. Bit of a twist. Amazon's not buying or operating them, though. Einride owns the trucks, manages them with AI, and Amazon driver will book gigs through a relay app. They're obviously not normal trucks. These are cabless autonomous pods. Einride's going public soon through a SPAC merger, and the Amazon deal is it's a bit of validation for the tech approach. What does that mean for us? Electric autonomous fleets could reduce shipping costs. Could make low margin, if that happens, low margin, high velocity products become viable, even more so, or again, if they've been priced out. Products that weren't profitable to ship might return to profitability is ultimately the bottom line on this. But it's also interesting to see Amazon testing an asset light logistics flavor, right? So instead of owning the trucks, they're accessing capacity through partners. This could be a model that we could see more of. I find it particularly interesting because of the leverage that Amazon, the volume that Amazon can present. There's a lot of space where Amazon can basically say, well, this is how we want it, and if you don't like it, then we can take our business elsewhere. Lots of companies can say that, but a company the size of Amazon, doing the revenue that Amazon does, that carries significant weight to it. So it'll be interesting not only to watch this, to see how this model, if it proliferates throughout Amazon, their logistics network, and see if they start pushing people around. So let's see. Luke, anytime AI is in one of Luke's comments, I can't resist. When are they going to AI notice and proactively reship customer items instead of waiting till I notice 3 months later and have to open a chat? Valid question, Luke. That's that is a good question. What's up, Polly? BME on track to do $2,000 in FBA this month. It's awesome, BME. I've grown by watching videos online, but ready to join a course or group to take me to the next level. Could you talk about what all is available in OAC Plus? I certainly can. Yeah. So OAC Plus is what's been not quite a year yet. I think I want to say it was July of last year that it launched. Because I believe second to 2 OA challenges ago, finished up in July, I believe, or maybe 3 OA challenges ago. I don't remember. But it was coordinated with the end of the July OA challenge that Chris Grant ran. And he launched the OAC Plus. At the end of it, it was a way for, not exclusively, but it was a way for the graduates of that OA challenge to continue spending time and networking together and putting their heads together to continuously improve, and basically take the knowledge that they had taken from the OA challenge, put it into practice, and kind of talk through and share their experiences and wins and challenges and whatnot. So that was the coordinated launch. It was also available to other people that you don't have to take the OA challenge to get access to it. Anyone can access the OA challenge. But yeah, so it's a community. It's housed on Discord. I'm not sure how basic you need the information, but we're housed on Discord, right? And Discord offers us the opportunity to have different channels for different content, and different focus, depending on what it is that we're talking about. So there's a general chat. We've got the courses are housed in there, right? Like wholesale challenge, the credit card points challenge, replays of the OA challenge are in there. You get Source Lens for free as a member of OAC Plus. That's the newest benefit. There is a dedicated channel that provides Amazon to Amazon flips. You'll get price alerts when prices drop. There's one channel that goes 24/7, providing Amazon to Amazon flips leads. There is Chris Grant does a weekly coaching session every Thursday at noon. He goes live. He usually has a nugget to share with everybody that he teaches, and then the rest of the coaching session is open to Q&A live with Chris Grant. That's exclusively in the OAC Plus. Every Monday night, tomorrow night, again at 9 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be going live for at least 90 minutes, and I'll be doing live sourcing. And live sourcing that I do is through my Storefront Stalker Pro dashboard. So it kind of doubles as Storefront Stalker Pro training, because also as part of OAC Plus, you get a free basic membership to Storefront Stalker Pro, absolutely free. You can stock 3 stores as a complimentary benefit to your membership. You also get a 40% discount if you want to upgrade your plan, right? I have the 40 store plan, which is normally $140 a month regular retail price. With your OAC Plus discount, that comes down to $82 a month. And then there's 2 other plans in between. There's a 10 store plan, 20 store plan, and then 40 store plan. So you get 3 for free, upgrade to 10, 20, 40 with a 40% discount on top of there. I am forgetting some of the stuff. You get suspension support. There is a ticketing program in Discord, to where if something goes sideways with your account, you get suspended. You need help translating the Amazon email, what you need to do. We can help you walk through that. If you need to, most of the time they require a plan of action, or POA. Chris Grant will help you write that. He's written hundreds upon hundreds of them over his Amazon career. So he's very good at it. If you get a Section 3, that support is there. You can open up a ticket, and we will help translate what it is Amazon's asking for, help walk you through the process. He's been reviewing documentation submissions. He figured out a very smart way to organize the documentation in a Section 3. Because the key is with Amazon, a lot depends whether it be ungating or Section 3 or whatnot. A lot of it comes down to the person on the other end that you've emailed, that opens up your email that you send in. So Chris developed a very smart way to organize the information so that it's very easy to walk through. And it just goes one by one, everything that they're asking for, in a very clear format, a very concise format that has had a lot of success in getting people to successfully get through these Section 3 suspensions. Another part of the ticking process, if you have an ASIN that you're not sure about, if you think it looks good, or maybe it's checking all the boxes except maybe 1 or 2, and you want somebody else, a seasoned seller, to look at it, you can actually open up a ticket and specifically to request a review of an ASIN that you're looking at. We will get back to you. Oftentimes, most of the time, Chris even does a Loom video where he shares a screen and kind of walks through what he likes, what he doesn't like, what he would do, what he suggests you do with it. So that's available to you as well. Gosh, if there are any OAC Plus members, I haven't given this pitch in a while, so if I forgot anything, let me know. We run a monthly book club in there. We're just about finishing up The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. In about less than a week, we're going to get together and talk about that book, and then we're also going to select the book for May. I have a lot of fun with that. There's a handful of voracious readers in the group, so we all get together and try to better our business through knowledge and through reading. So we do that. There's podcasts are posted in there. There's special interviews. There's off-topic chats, so we can talk about anything. There's even there's what we call a wellness cafe. There's a handful of us that are trying to be healthier, sitting at a desk all day. That sedentary lifestyle that the OA Amazon seller tends to lead. You can jump in there, and we could talk about being healthy, whether it be exercise, whether it be diet, or whatnot. There's news. There's an AI dedicated channel to where we talk about use cases, what we're using, both the AI model that we're using and use cases that are helping to improve our business. I don't remember if I mentioned it or not, but Zach Altmeyer has a dedicated channel for discontinued bolos. We've had Zach on both the podcast, and he's jumped in here as a co-host on these shows a couple times. He specializes in discontinued products, which the mechanism that makes it so attractive with his discounted bolos or discontinued bolos is that they're out of production, which tends to raise the price significantly oftentimes. So he even has a paid newsletter that he provides bolos in the paid newsletter, and he's now housed in Discord as well. So he has a dedicated channel for the discounted bolos. We do stuff like a death pile challenge. A lot of us have death piles, which is just capital that has been reduced to zero until we liquidate it on an alternate platform, whether it be a bad buy or whether it be a return. So we have a channel in there dedicated to try to get us motivated to get some of that capital back a little bit faster, or get some of that capital back at all, right? So there's a wins channel. If you have something good, we want to celebrate it. I think that's important. There's a lot of negative talk that goes around depending on what circles that you run in via social media. So it's important to balance that out, that dopamine seesaw. We do throw some positive wins in there, and we encourage everyone to celebrate the good stuff that happens too. There's a Box Wars channel. If you've got a shipment going out of your house, we encourage you to snap a picture of it and then post it in the Box Wars channel. It's not a war, like there's not a winner, but we find it motivating to see some of these shipments going out, whether it be the velocity at which they go out, or whether it be once a week these huge stacks of FBM shipments waiting to get picked up or whatnot. It's very motivating, to see the kind of volume and see the good work that's being done in the community. So, yeah, let's see. What did I miss? Polly says, if you're considering OAC Plus, the community alone is worth the price. There are so many people in here willing to help you. The shows with Chris and Chris are invaluable for live Q&A help along the way. Thank you very much, Polly. Yep, we share our wins and encourage each person, no matter what the revenue level. Yeah, it's a judgment-free zone. I just saw somebody on Twitter. Somebody said they were running 19% margins on RA and just 16% on their wholesale business. And they said, well, it's they're trying to make the case that retail arbitrage is still viable, right? And somebody had the nerve to comment and be like, "Oh, this is really a commercial for wholesale," meaning that the 19% margin wasn't impressive through retail arbitrage. That's kind of snark that you don't get in the OAC Plus, and really, that's ridiculous to downplay 19% margins. The margins on a retail business in general, compare them to the margins that you get investing in the stock market or something like that. It lacks a little bit of perspective. I think everybody's, it's easy, these keyboard warriors, it's easy for us to scoff at anything under 20%, and try to laugh them out of the room as if they're an amateur. When 19% margin doing a retail arbitrage, it's nothing to sneeze at. But that's what we try to avoid, right? Whether it be your first sale, we want to celebrate that with you, whether it be, hitting $1,000 or adding a zero for the first time, whatever that number is, whether it's your first $100 in sales or your first $1,000 in sales or your first 5-figure month. You're not going to be looked down upon simply because I or somebody else, we've determined that isn't a big enough number. It's just a ridiculous attitude. So we do avoid that in there. So if you're interested, go to oachallenge.com/plus, I believe. Somebody could verify that URL. Yeah, you can give it a shot. Is there? Again, I'm off my game right now. I don't remember if there's a trial or whatnot, but I believe there is a trial. You can check it out for a few days, see if it's something that's worth your while. Co-working sessions. I didn't mention the co-working sessions. We try to practice the Hawthorne effect, which is one of my I run it because I like it so much. It keeps me on focus. The Hawthorne effect is basically how we use the Hawthorne effect in these co-working sessions is every Saturday. Sometimes they pop up randomly, but we have a scheduled one every Saturday at 2:00. I usually stay in there for at least 2 hours, most times 3 hours. You turn your cameras on, turn your mics off, and you just get to work. It's just a silent work session, but we all have our cameras on. So the Hawthorne effect was a study that was done many, many years ago, but they found that when they rearranged a factory, the workers that were in view of the boss's office windows turned out to be more productive than the ones further away or out of sight of the boss's windows. So there's this effect that occurs where we tend to get more stuff done if we think we're being watched. It's not nearly as creepy as it sounds, but it's a focused work session. I encourage anyone to try it out. Chris and I started doing that on our own, where we would just turn our cameras on, mute our mics, and just work on camera. And we found that it worked. We got more done. It kept us from reaching for the phone and just getting a cheap dopamine hit because we got bored with a task or something like that. It keeps you on task, makes you more effective. So let me see. Stacy, hi, I am only FBA. And when creating listings the other day, I noticed that now the FBM option also says easy ship with Amazon. Do you know what that is? Do you know if that is still just for international shipments? I am not sure. I don't pay attention to FBM at all. I am and always have been 100% FBA. I even turned the little columns off in RevSeller for the FBM. I pay zero attention to it. So yeah, that one I am not sure. If you're still curious, Chris will be back for the Wednesday show if you want to ask then, or if you're in the community, if you're in OAC Plus or you're FBA today or something like that, feel free to pop that question in there. Somebody's bound to know. Yamil, maybe we'll go with that. Hi, Chris. I have an SSP, Storefront Stalker Pro, and I want to know, how do you choose the seller you want to follow, and when do you decide to change them? Do you look how many items they added in seller lookup in Keepa? So that last question, sometimes I do. Yes, I will. Every once in a while, I will monitor what's going on via the seller lookup portion of Keepa. It's a smart thing to do. Not only are you looking up total ASINs, you can see if their catalog's expanding or contracting, which is valuable information if you're trying to make a determination on the value of that storefront in Storefront Stalker Pro. However, there's also similar stores. You can also, if there's a store that you like and you're like, this one is a winner, I also use seller lookup to try to find other stores like it. So yeah, seller lookup is very valuable from a perspective of Storefront Stalker Pro. The first question, how do you choose the seller you want to follow, and when do you decide to change them? So I pretty much start out, I pick my storefronts while I'm sourcing primarily, especially if there's a product that I really, really like. I figure if there's a product that I like and there's a handful of sellers already on it, chances are I like how they source, right? They found it before I did even. So I want to know what else they've found, right? So I'll start opening up those storefronts. I'll look and see what they have. I'll use both whether you're using RevSeller or SellerAmp, they both have something similar. I can look up, or you can actually use Seller Lens, or Source Lens, to do some storefront stalking too as well. But I will use I personally use RevSeller storefront analysis, where when you open up their storefront, you can see the country that they're based in. You can see the total number of ASINs in their store, which is valuable information, how many ASINs. Storefront Stalker Pro is going to cap you at 5,000. But I find there's a range that I prefer. I want there to be enough ASINs so that it's worth the slot in Storefront Stalker Pro, because I only get so many. And then I want a certain amount of volume. Like if you got at least 500, I'd say is probably the minimum, unless the actual inventory is something that I'm really, really interested in. There may be somebody that has a bunch of great stuff and they only have 400 ASINs total. I might still add it if it's of interest to me. But I'll look at the total ASINs, make sure they're in the US marketplace. The middle section on the storefront analysis will give you the brands in descending order. It'll give you the brands that they have the most of. So I'm going to take a look at that, and I'm going to see what kind of stuff that they do, because I have a general idea of whether I'm gated or not. And it's like, okay, I like that brand. I like that one. Don't care about that one. So I want to make sure they have some brands that I can sell and that I like selling. And then the third column is the categories. I want to see what kind of categories that they're in. I know through sourcing in the dashboard of Storefront Stalker Pro, I know the types of stuff that I buy. I kind of always have an idea of categories that I want more exposure to, that I really like selling in. Like I'm always looking for more in the automotive category. I'm always looking for more in industrial and scientific, and I'm always looking for more in tools and home improvement. Those are big categories that I don't think have a lot of competition from an arbitrage perspective. So I'll get a feel for that, and then I'll scroll down and just start looking at some of the actual ASINs. And I'll click through. In the storefront analysis on RevSeller, you can actually click the categories, and it'll pull all their ASINs in that category. Same thing with the brand. You can actually click on the brand, and it'll actually isolate just those ASINs from that particular brand in that storefront, in that view that I'm talking about. And then from there, it's a yay or nay. And then if I really, really like it, I'll copy the marketplace ID, and I'll pop that into seller lookup, and I can try to find other stores that have a similar profile and go from there. When do you decide to change them? That's something I don't do quite as often as I should. But every so often I'll go in and just kind of copy the marketplace ID and open up their storefront and take a look. Of course, I use seller lookup as well, because that'll tell me how drastic the change is, whether it's up or down as far as total products in their catalog. And sometimes you find, sometimes I've found that stores have completely closed up shop. So it's a little bit interesting to take a look at, get an idea of when that happened, and how long I've been wasting a slot in my Storefront Stalker Pro. So, but that's the gist. Hopefully that helps. Damon, yep. Access to a bunch of courses. There's thousands of dollars worth of courses that you get access to immediately as part of your membership to OAC Plus. GC just joined yesterday, and the Keep It Training course is amazing. That's awesome. I'm glad you jumped into that. Yeah, Chris's Keep It stuff is incredible. It's funny, the OA challenge, he originally had 1 day for Keepa, and then I think it just spilled over kind of just naturally into a second day because he didn't quite get through everything that he talked about. Current iterations of the OA challenge, he now has 3 days. Like Keepa goes into a third day now. But originally he he was going to just abbreviate the Keepa section because he had an entire Keepa Academy that he offered as well. So I think for purposes of redundancy, he wasn't going to put too much in the OA challenge, but there's so much Keepa to talk about. So now he does 3 days, and he has Keepa Academy, which is a full-blown course on Keepa, and even later he produced the Keepa SOPs, which I think is up into there's 70 or 80 different Keepa SOPs now. And Keepa SOPs, you also get those free inside of SourceLens, and you get SourceLens for free as part of your OAC Plus membership. So tons of different ways to make your money back and make it worth it. I am allergic to FBM. Well, I thought I would have ventured into it at this point, 6 years into selling. I knew I didn't want to do much of it. Early on, I wasn't doing it because I was scared of reviews because I didn't have very many. And I wanted to keep 100%. And I told myself, well, I'll just wait to do any FBM until I get a good base of reviews, so that one bad review didn't take me from 100% down to 80% or something like that. Never happened. I just still never did any merchant fulfilled. Deal Hunter, I have some products that are between $5 and $12 more profitable as an FBM rather than FBA. Interesting. I always pay attention which option works best for me. Smart way to do it, Deal Hunter. I am fully aware that I am leaving money on the table by not doing any merchant fulfilled. Eden Singh's using SourceLens and loving it. Yeah, he really nailed it with SourceLens. It's amazing everything that he packed in to that tool. I'm still trying to remember all the stuff that it does. I even caught myself earlier today. I was sourcing, and there was a site, and I was like, I better run this through AI and make sure that they're legitimate, because at first glance at the homepage and the product page, I couldn't really tell. I wanted AI to give me an analysis on it, and I caught myself opening up a tab, going to Perplexity, and I was going to type it in, and I was like, no, wait, there's a little button, a little floating button at the bottom of the supplier page that you can click on. You could hit a drop down for whatever AI you want to use, and you have a pre-built prompt, which will tell you whether it's legitimate. There's a prompt that'll go out and find if they have free shipping. It'll tell you what that threshold is to get free shipping. It's not always obvious on the supplier websites. A bunch of other options. If there are tariffs and duties, you can have AI find that out. There's a pre-written prompt for that. You can get Trustpilot reviews. There's a prompt for best coupons and cash back. It's all just a little button at the bottom, just floats on all of the supplier pages when you have SourceLens installed. He nailed it. All right. Now, to be fair, Luke, that wasn't an intentional hopping on camera. That was you on your phone without realizing that last time you used your phone's camera, you apparently were taking selfies or something like that. So, Jaron doesn't, like if you just hop on in a co-work session, he's not taking screenshots of you that way. All right, so keep the questions coming. We've got plenty of time. I've got a ton of news left. I want to talk more about returns, because this is I am drawn to this news because I think it's interesting. I think things are shifting. I think collectively retailers are going to they're going to do something about how easy and how much abuse goes on with returns in e-commerce. So this article is calling it the returns revolution, and a little bit about store closures too. So essentially, two trends are colliding here. Uber Eats has launched retail returns, which is pretty curious by itself. And then separately, there was an article that said analysts predict 40,000 plus store closures over the next 5 years, 40,000 brick and mortar closures. So the Uber Eats returns, you can tap return an item. You can explain why. You can choose return with courier. And you can actually get instant refunds for orders of $20 or more. Right now, the partners with Uber Eats for this return thing are Best Buy, Dick's Sporting Goods, PacSun, Petco. There's a return fee. It's based on the courier distance and time. Now, couple that with separately, UBS predicted that 40,000 retail store closures will occur over the next 5 years. E-commerce growth plus AI plus tariffs, those policies could drive even more. Those aren't even factored in. So department stores and specialty retailers are definitely the most at risk. So the returns context, nearly $850 billion in returns are expected to be reported for the year 2025. 9% of those have been deemed fraudulent. The National Retail Foundation says 85% of merchants use AI to detect fraud, but only 45% of those say it's effective, right? So what does this mean for sellers? More store closures actually equals more liquidation opportunities, but easier returns through courier networks could mean higher return rates that we have to plan for. So it's going to push, obviously the store closures are going to push e-commerce. So it's pretty rare to see a pro return. I shouldn't say pro return. Uber Eats doing this that's a pivot for Uber Eats, right? They're trying to branch out. I think we've hit saturation level on these couriers, and now they're trying to branch out enough and maintain revenue streams by offering more services. I think that's the main takeaway from that. But overall, from our perspective, not good to see returns have a little less friction, right? When most of the information, we're starting to see retailers announcing adding more friction to the returns process to try to get them to slow down because they've become such an issue. So takeaway, retail infrastructure, it's being rebuilt around convenience, obviously, not physical presence. E-commerce is on a huge run of gains. The problem with that, you got to the point where Amazon needed to, in order to sway people to shop digitally instead of brick and mortar, you had to reduce that friction on the returns. And I think most of us here would agree that they made it a little bit too easy. So much so that we're at the point now where we need to reverse course and make it a little bit more difficult. Because the abuse it can get crazy. I mean, it ticks us off, so it obviously it's stickier. When we get a switcheroo or something like that, but it is a legitimate issue that I hope retailers in general start moving to a tougher process overall for it. So. Let's see. BME had quite a few times cashback didn't take. What's the best way to assure you get it to work? Yeah, it's just a matter of being intentional about it. I oftentimes I will kind of restart the transaction if I think something weird has happened. Um, you got to be careful of coupon sites, because a lot of the coupon sites will hijack the affiliate link, um, and actually take the cash back. That's how they generate their revenue, is when you click on, usually they'll have it covered, and you'll have to click for the code, and that click is what initiates their cookie, their affiliate cookie. So that'll actually hijack your cashback if you've clicked on your own cashback before that point. So, and then you just a lot of the deal sites, like if you search, like I get emails from Brad's Deals and Slick Deals and stuff like that. If you click on those are affiliate links. So yeah, so you want to make sure the last click before you check out is the cashback that you're intending to use. Yeah, if there's anything wonky at all, you want to make sure you go back through it. I've even emptied my cart if I'm not sure, and then I'll actually rebuild the order after I've clicked the cashback that I'm looking for, and just start the process all over again. So yeah, there's behind the scenes, there are a lot of surprising sites sometimes even that are trying to hijack that affiliate cookie and take that referral money for themselves instead of you getting it as cash back. So Deal Hunter talking about returns. Can we set an automatic restock fee like 20% while listing? Yeah, there's some sort of function like that. I know there is the ability to mark a restock fee. Don't know how to do it. Obviously on the FBM side, I don't. That's something you want to pop in the chat and get details on that. But I know you do have the ability to charge a restock fee. There's conditions, so you'll want to check those out. Make sure that you're using it properly, and you can apply it when you're allowed to. But yeah, that'll help offset some of these bad deals that we get stuck with. Yeah, Artem, I think there's zero chance a single Uber driver is making money with current gas prices. It's got to be quite a challenge. And it's kind of, Uber's already well into the enshittification process, where they're cutting compensation and now they've obviously they hit their peak, around pandemic lockdowns, all that sort of stuff. I would assume that was probably the peak of their exposure and revenue, most likely. So I think they built up their fleet and the workers and whatnot. They're also getting pounded from a legislation standpoint, and I think some mismanagement, stuff like that, lawsuits and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, it's got to be tough out there for the drivers. I know there are. I've known a few people that have dabbled in it, and even years ago, they would they try to work multiple systems at the same time. Like they would have Uber Eats, DoorDash, sometimes even like Instacart going at the same time, and try to shorten the gap between orders to to maximize the revenue that they were making. You're not supposed to. I think that's against terms of service for each individual platform. And obviously, high probability that you can get stuck in your delivery metrics and on time percentages and all that sort of stuff. If you get orders from two different platforms at the same time before you have a chance to deactivate yourself on them, could get dicey. But that's apparently what they're having to resort to. And that was years ago that I heard that. Uber Eats is losing money to DoorDash. Yeah. I don't think any of them are doing great. I think I think they ran with some thinner margins, for the sake of growth, and tried to become the number one in the space. Lots of companies that tends to be the model now. You kind of sacrifice positive numbers with your revenue for the sake of growth, and you kind of hope that the profit comes later once you're positioned, which is usually when they start cutting compensation and adding fees and whatnot, to the existing people in the fleet. So Poly charging up the $1.68 in electric to charge up the EV. Nice. Let's see if there are questions. Hey, Jill. All right, I do have some more news. I keep the questions coming if you have anything. All right, you guys are talking EVs, so I talked a little bit about AI. Let's talk about a little more AI. We can't have a show without talking about AI. This one's interesting. There was a study that came out that actually had some angles and some information on the actual numbers that AI traffic is putting out. So the way the story goes is, after a year of what were disappointing results, to be honest, AI referred traffic is finally converting better than traditional sources. The information comes from Adobe, specifically their March data set. AI-driven traffic converted 42% better than non-AI sources, which is a reversal from 2025 information, when AI traffic converted at nearly half the rate of traditional traffic. AI visitors also 48%. They spent 48% more time on the sites. They viewed 13% more pages on the websites. They were 12% less likely to bounce, 37% higher revenue per visit. Adobe surveyed consumers, and 79% feel more confident in purchases after using AI assistants. And they were 69% less likely to return AI-assisted purchases. There's more return information. Volume growth, AI traffic was up 393% year over year in Q1 of 2026. Now that's actually down from what was a 673% increase in December of 2025. I'm not sure if that's apples to apples, December traffic. There is something big that goes on in December that may have more eyeballs and skew those numbers a little bit, but it's still very fast growth, right? If it is slowing a little bit on that short sample size. AI traffic is small but engaged. If there are ways that you can optimize for AI discovery, it is becoming more valuable, depending on what channels you have going on. But it seems clear that AI traffic is finding its footing. It may be small volume, but it is high intent and starting to convert better. So the arbitrager, limited impact if you're exclusively arbitrage, but if you do have some other sales channels, is definitely something to keep in mind. And we know it's worth monitoring overall, because we know that Amazon is investing quite a bit of money, to integrate AI into their own shopping. So Amazon's AI integration, I don't think that's going to hurt us. I think that has a possibility to actually help us in certain ways. I think if what the challenge is with Amazon's AI rollout, I think the challenge for us as sellers, I think in stock rates become even more important. I think it becomes a more finely tuned to inventory availability. There may not be much that we can do as far as inventory placement, except pay our fees, like good boys and girls, get a digital tap on the head as we fork over those inventory placement fees. But we can control in-stock rates. So if you're doing high volumes on certain ASINs, as AI becomes more prevalent in the shopping experience, I think it's a pretty good bet. I think in-stock rates become a very, very important metric for us. Doubling down on the AI traffic, there is more information as far as specifically traffic, right? Just what AI is sending to the sites. Article that I found said not everyone's seeing the same AI traffic performance that Adobe reported. The data tells different stories depending on who's measuring it. No surprise, right? There was a German study, Kaiser and Schultz, that said ChatGPT accounted for less than 0.2% of e-commerce traffic. It also said that it converted about twice as well as paid social, but underperformed most other channels. Organic search had 13% higher conversion than AI referrals. This is conflicting data, right? Adobe says AI visitors are 42% more likely to purchase and spend 48% longer on site. The academic study found AI visitors less likely to bounce, but implied fewer pages and less time on site. Why the difference? Why could we have two completely different outputs from these articles? It depends on measurement methods, right? And I'm talking about post-click versus last-click attribution. It also depends on geography. Adobe was the U.S. The German study was 49 countries total. Depends on timing, right? One study was early 2025. The Adobe information was more recent data. It also depends on channel maturity and different definitions. It also depends on how you define AI traffic. They may not even have the same definition of what constitutes official AI traffic. So AI traffic data sets they're tiny, easily skewed, right? So if what I said before, if I said optimizing for AI and you kind of went, I can't do that. This is the balance to that. Those numbers are easily skewed, and at least right now, it's not mission critical to chase that volume just yet. So, but again, important to see and understand how AI is reshaping product discovery as a whole. I think the zooming out to the general trends is the part that we really need to spend a little bit of energy monitoring. So it's early, it's uneven, and largely unclear still, but the information coming in is pretty interesting. So I've got a consumer confidence article as well. Artem, yeah, this is the question that I've asked as well. How long until we're drowning in ads and sponsored content? Not only that, Artem, but how far away are we from the prices going way, way up? You can get you have free access right now, obviously limited usage. I think Anthropic and OpenAI, they have a $20 plan, both of them. You can upgrade to a max plan. I think both of them have that $100 price point. And then there's even, I know Claude has or is it OpenAI? Maybe both of them. I think there's a $200 a month option as well, and those are based on usage. So, how long until free access goes away? And I don't know what order this is going to go, right? But eventually, free access will go away, right? Once we hit saturation levels, once we have the users, once everybody gets familiar with it and starts moving towards becoming dependent on it, that's when the free access probably goes away. $20 for the entry plan. This is probably the cheapest it will ever be. I think that price will go up, and I think eventually it goes way up, right? I could see, once these companies actually have to shift into revenue mode, like true revenue mode, like they're borrowing far more than they're bringing in right now, right? Because they're building infrastructure and everything like that. Tell me if this sounds familiar of the network effect. We see it with social media networks, right? Facebook is free for everybody, right? So they roll out the red carpet to get as many users as possible, and then once they have enough users, they start courting businesses. Like, make a business page, make a group, right? Jump on here. You have access to all of these users. You can sell, you can make money for free, or for low price, and the ads are real cheap and whatnot. And then they shift things and they screw the users, right? So now you're going to start seeing ads as a user, because now they're starting to get ad revenue from the businesses that they courted. So they want to maximize that revenue. So the users see more ads. They start thinking it sucks. Then once you start building enough business via ads on the social network will jack up the price because you're dependent on it now. And it's like, where else am I going to go? I've got to pay to play, right? And you get kind of stuck in that infrastructure. So then the businesses start saying, well, this sucks, right? So the user saying, well, this kind of sucks now. And the businesses say, this kind of sucks now, because the social media network has revenue goals and shareholders, that they have to report to. And that's essentially the enshittification. So why wouldn't the same thing happen with AI, right? Free plan, everybody start using it. Articles and people, it gets coverage, mass coverage of everything you can do with it, and we're trying to normalize use cases and get everybody used to AI being a part of our lives, whether it be planning a trip or organizing your email inboxes and thinking out questions, and they'll eventually pull the rug out from under us. I think it's just a matter of time, right? Yeah, whatever you do, be nice. Be nice to AI. Say please and thank you if you can. Yeah, once these data centers are in place, they're going to have water bills, electric bills. There's going to be, the costs are going to keep going up as the infrastructure is built out. That's logical. And eventually they're going to have to start paying for all that. Dank Melon, how long does it take to train a VA for sourcing, and when should you get one? It's a good question. So let's tackle when to get one first. My opinion on when a VA makes sense is once your store gets big enough to where you're forced to do lower revenue tasks instead of your higher revenue tasks, right? And more specifically is, if you have to do reconciliations, or you have to make shipments, which, I mean, that's prep center is obviously the outsource for shipments or stuff. But if you have to do admin work and it keeps you from sourcing, you're being forced to make less money, because of what needs done in your store. So now you have to look at outsourcing some of your time. And I'm not necessarily saying that you should hire an admin VA first. It may be the type of thing where you get a sourcing VA so you can now source in less time, but still maintain the inventory levels that you need to maintain, and then have time for your admin work, right? So if you, instead of just going site by site, and it's like, okay, I need to do the Sunday night, I need to do the Walgreens sale this week, I need to see what's buy one get one free, what's buy one get one 50% off, I need to make sure I get to Walgreens. I need to see what the new Macy's sale is this week, or tonight's the last night for the Macy's sale. I need to make sure there's a bunch of stuff that I wanted to check on that I need to get to there, so now I want to check Macy's. I've got, Arbasource or Nepeto or TA. I've got scans that are sitting there that I also need to get to those. And the longer I wait, the more stale that information is going to get, which potentially is a bad thing, right? I've got 10 stores that I want to manually storefront stock. I need to jump into Storefront Stalker Pro and see what my dashboard, see what's new, right? And you've got all these tasks, right? You're not going to be able to get to all of them, depending on what window you have to get the sort of stuff done. If you bring up, now you can consider bringing on a VA. Be like, okay, my VA can go through my TA scans and make sure those are capitalized on. I can give a VA Macy's and Walgreens, so now I can do the storefront stocking, check my replens, whatever, right? So now you're running in parallel. You've got a VA and yourself both working on that sourcing, right? So you're spending the same time, or maybe even more time now, but you've freed up your own schedule for the admin work. That's the kind of scenario where a VA makes sense. How long does it take to train a VA? I hate this answer. It's going to depend, right? It's going to depend on the VA that you hire, right? There are different experience levels for VAs. It's early Q2 right now. I've always found that my best VAs, my favorite VAs, are usually hired Q1, sometimes early Q2. There are people that kind of hired VAs on a temporary basis to get through Q4 and get through the returns process and stuff like that. Maybe I'm just looking for it. Maybe it's the Bader-Meinhof effect, where I'm looking for VAs, so I find them in Q1. It's possible. I don't know. But it also makes sense that there would be some turnover this time of year. So I've had sourcing VAs that they lost their job, not through any fault of their own, not because of a skill issue. They're simply sellers that are scaling back for whatever reason. And you've got to kind of ferret that information out. You'll probably be told that they're good. I just need to cut costs or something like that more often than it's really that case. Nobody's going to be like, yeah, I've got a VA, but they're pretty bad, so I'm letting them go. Like, we usually want to, if we have to let them go reluctantly, we want to set them up with another job, so that they can keep the lights on, and keep an income stream. So there is a bit of diligence to be done in the hiring process, and it's always a good idea to put them on a trial basis, whether it be 30 days or 90 days paid trials, like just say, hey, we're going to reassess it, or 30 and 90 heck, why not? Just say, hey, we'll go back over it after 30 days. We'll see where we stand. And then we'll revisit it again 90 days and we'll see if this is a good fit. Training perspective, I've had VAs hit the ground running, where it's basically they start on their Monday morning and we kind of go over some things. They want to know basic metrics, and I tell them what I need. I need at least $5 profit per item, 30% ROI. And actually, my newest hire was like that. She's very good, and she's had minimal training. She's doing manual sourcing. I think she's primarily storefront stocking, rabbit trailing a little bit off of some manual sourcing as well. She's been great. I mean, her batting average is very, very high. And it's just kind of been tweaks here and there, just say, hey, make sure you don't use any welcome codes, any code that says welcome 10, welcome 15, just basically I have to assume that I've shopped there before. Every store, it doesn't matter where you are, don't give me any buy costs that are based on a 15% off welcome code. I don't want them to add any of those. So just little tweaks like that, or there's certain sites for like, no, I don't source Corel. It's like they cancel all my orders, so let's not put that site on there at all. And or too many Jellycat leads. Like I've had to let's pump the brakes. I don't want any more than 2 Jellycat leads per week. I can't order enough, or whatnot. So, or the flip side is you can, I know some people very much prefer VAs that don't have any experience at all. There's a thought process that they don't want to take on somebody else's VA because they're going to take on that VA and by connection, that seller's bad habits. That's valid too. Obviously, that's going to take longer. So it kind of depends. I would give them some sort of trial. If you have say you have a keep a product finder search, and you've got a real tight window that with like 100 results or something like that, and you really narrow down a field, source those 100 products yourself, see what you come up with, put it on a sheet, hand that same search, those same 100 results to the VA as a test, a trial, and see what they're able to come up with, see how much overlap there is, see how many of the same deals that you found that the VA was able to find too. That's one way to do it. And then you can also, of course, you can control it by narrowing the scope of their duties. Those that can always be expanded later on. If you're like, hey, like this is what I want you to do. And you can kind of just train piece by piece and expand the role, which is going to expand the value of the VA as you go. So, sorry, that's not a real definitive answer, but as far as how long it takes, that it's a difficult question to has a bunch of different correct answers, I think. So. Likewise, still wins. Very curious for the earnings call. Sleekiest, when to jump from OA to wholesale. All right. I don't know if you intended it to sound like this, but the way you phrase that makes it sound like it's a foregone conclusion. And if that's the case, I disagree. Maybe never. I know the people that teach wholesale, or the people that have soured on arbitrage and sick of the feed, disgruntled OA arbitrage sellers. We get looked down upon, because they have a wholesale course to sell. Most of the time, private labels the same way. They tend to crap on arbitrage as some basic stuff, like a novice way to do it. You don't ever have to transition out of OA in general, right? Just now, if it's the type of thing where it's like, okay, I've got OA going great, I want to add wholesale, because that's an easier way to run more units, then, I mean, the basic question, when to jump to wholesale is, the things you want to do with OA. You want to make sure you have a long period of time. You want to make sure you have experience selling on Amazon, right? And I'm not saying it's not necessarily a dollar figure, right? You want to have your reps in selling, just in general, because there's a whole bunch of scenarios that can't be written down. Nobody can write a book on all the weird stuff that's going to happen. I mean, we're in OAC Plus, the chats, something weird pops up all the time. The questions that start with, has anybody ever had this happen? And then just something completely bizarre will be written. And it's like, well, and then we try to, sometimes somebody did. Sometimes a handful of us are like, I've never had that happen. So you want to kind of build a base of, the troubleshooting that's required to sell on Amazon in general. Because if you add wholesale, or you transfer or convert over to wholesale, the stakes are higher, right? Because now you have more relationships. You've got more valuable relationships that you're dealing with. And if you go in and you're knocking on doors, and you're cold calling distributors and brands and whatnot, depending on how you go about it, there's multiple ASINs that are on the line with this relationship. There's a lot of time. Something goes wrong. If I order 10 units from Target, and there's some sort of issue, that I have to recall it, or they all of a sudden I get caught in the middle of the conversion to transparency codes, and my units go stranded, and I've got to prove transparency codes. My relationship with Target is irrelevant, right? No matter what happens with this inventory, I can go back to Target and order something else later on, until I get banned, but then I could start another account, right? But you know what I mean? The relationship with Target, not that it almost doesn't matter, it's like 10 units, 20 units, whatever, you place some orders, try not to get banned. That's about the extent of it. Wholesale relationships they're different. They could take a lot of work to establish. They could take a lot of maintenance to get them to the point where you're making the kind of money that you want from that wholesale account. It takes a lot more reps. One of our early podcast interviews, we had one guy would go around in industrial parks, and he'd physically knock on doors, and try to talk to each of these warehouses in this district. That's going to have a lower batting average. You can pretty much place an order, do an OA anywhere. And then the other thing with wholesale is the amount of money that you're going to invest. It very much depends on the types of wholesale accounts that you're going after. But certain wholesale connections are going to have minimum order. What do they call it? MO, minimum order. I forget what it's called. There's another letter. There's an acronym for it. But you may call people and they're like, yeah, you can set up a wholesale account. Minimum order is $5,000. Depends on what $5,000 means to you. The time to jump to wholesale is if you can hear a minimum order threshold of $5,000 or $10,000 or 200 units minimum of whatever it is. You want to make sure that whatever number you're told, doesn't make you choke. That's one easy marker. You want to make sure you have, and you can get set up. Yes, there are wholesale accounts. You can order $500 or even lower than that. There you can find lower minimums. But I would assume you want to do wholesale because the volume, is in the hundreds. Now I can get 100 units, without having to place 10 unit orders because their website limits me, on certain stuff, so yeah, so you want to make sure that you got the capital. You got to make sure that you got the a thick enough skin to hear no a handful of times before you get a yes. Make sure you have a base of a good understanding of how selling on Amazon works. Outside of that, it's it's from there. I would think anything outside of that is probably a feel basis. Go by feel. Something that you want to do. Don't think you have to do it though. That's kind of what I was getting at in the beginning. I don't know if that's what you meant, but I know there are certain people that'll frame it that way. That we're just playing games, doing arbitrage. Once you want to go to the adult table, people will make it sound like wholesale is the adult table, but it's not always true. Exactly. Why not both? Do I document sales cycles? Some. Yeah, I think more than actual. I think mostly what I do is mental documentation, just by ending up on sites over and over again, and kind of getting a feel for it. I have more sales cycles in my memory than I do on paper. Put it that way. I use mild.com. If I see some potential with a site, or if a certain site keeps popping up, or a product, an ASIN from a site pops up again after a period of time, I'll remember it. And it's like, okay, I need to dig a little bit deeper into that. I'll go to, it's Mild, MILLED.com. They basically, it's an archive of sales emails. They have a whole database, and you can actually look and see when big events come, and you try to time it out. Like, okay, well, I know, okay, it's this makeup place usually runs a big spring sale, so you can kind of prep yourself that way. I do a lot of that as well. But yeah, I probably don't invest enough energy into sales cycles because I think the ROI on it is significant if done well. Thanks for hanging out, Polly. Still Wins, have you implemented Source Lens into your regular sourcing routine? If so, any specific features that seem to work best out of all the amazing ones? Yeah, I mean, I always have it running. I have it installed. I have it running. Like I said earlier, I'm still trying to remember that, that it has a function that'll make whatever I'm doing easier. It's kind of still building familiarity with it. But when I remember, I do really like the legitimacy checker, the free shipping threshold. I like the fact that you can just one click and it'll automatically open up Perplexity with a prompt built in. I think you did a really good job with the prompt as far as telling AI to where to go, what to look at to establish the legitimacy of a site. I love that he added a score into the prompt, that it'll give me a score out of 10 on what the AI determines the legitimacy of the site is. I find that very useful. Yeah, I mean, obviously the colors on Keep a Product Finder, that's very nice. It's simple. He kind of he kind of downplays that part of it. But sometimes the basic features are often the most appreciated ones. So I think that saves some time. I can isolate the ones that are already approved, or if I'm actually finding auto ungates to be a little bit more frequent lately. So there's two different approaches that I'm using with Source Lens. If it's a straight, I need to buy inventory session, I can isolate and just focus on the green ones. I can sort those out and set up my search and set my corridors and only deal with stuff that I can sell. Take that out of the equation. Obviously that's going to make it more efficient, the sourcing session. I've also now, I played with it a little bit. I only about 20 minutes earlier today, where I wanted to see how much stuff I could get ungated. Once I had about 3 of them in a row that auto ungated. So I'm like, okay, this might be a trend, so then I went in, spent about, by the time I set it up, I think I spent about 10 or 15 minutes just digging into the yellow ones that I needed to request approval for, to see what kind of returns I could get. So, but there's more, I mean, I'm well aware that the most used use cases are probably still ahead of me. There's just so much, I can't even remember all the stuff that it does. Just funny because and if you listen to the webinars, it's like it takes us forever just to get through everything. I think he's over 30 features now on Source Lens. So doesn't make for short commercials when you try to sell it. BME, how do you make sense of all the third-party softwares, Nepeto, RevSeller, Tactical Arbitrage, ArbSource, etc.? There are dozens, and it can seem overwhelming judging between them and which ones are necessary or not. That is 100% true. It definitely can seem overwhelming, and it's daunting to sit there and be like, okay, I need to trial calculators. It can take up a lot of your mental bandwidth trying to figure that out. I would I'd lean on your network at least a little bit, kind of get some recommendations. Here's the thing. Somebody asked me the other day in the chat if I forget how it was worded, but it was basically they were using SellerAmp. I use RevSeller, and they asked me if I thought it was worth switching. And that, with those two tools, in my opinion, just my opinion, right? I think there's so much overlap between the two tools right now. I think ultimately it boils down to what you're comfortable with, and which UI you prefer looking at, because they do it's almost identical, the functions, right? I mean, they do it, if it was a Venn diagram, it would basically just be one circle. There wouldn't even be two circles intersecting. That's how much they overlap. These tools they've added so many features, and there's such aggressive improvements being made. And it seems like the improvements made to these tools are directly inspired by the competition. A lot of these tools, they don't necessarily have proprietary features, so it's like, well, this does this and I like that, but this one does this and I kind of like that, so now I need to figure out which one I like more. They're basically figuring out their own way to do the same thing, which makes it difficult to try to pick one or the other. So I and be careful what recommendations that you get. There are a lot of people out here that They have big groups and they have courses and stuff like that. And you get a lot of these people there. If you ask them what you should use, like, hey, should I use RevSeller or SellerAmp? A lot of people you run into and ask that question of are going to tell you the one that they have an affiliate link for, right? And they're only telling you to use a certain tool because they're going to make money if you sign up. It's the way it is, and they won't admit it either, right? There's massive groups out there that sing the praises of all these tools, and if you knew on the back end, it's all based on how much juice they're getting on the back end by referring this stuff, and they'll only refer stuff that they get an affiliate commission for. It's like that you won't. Even if another tool is just as good or even better, they'll dismiss it. Like, shouldn't even think about using that one. Use this one. So you got to be really careful. It's kind of just nature of the beast. If you had software, why wouldn't you approach the person with thousands upon thousands of people in their group and offer them a commission, right? That's the smart way to grow your user base. I get it. It all comes down to the integrity of the person given the recommendation, right? So that said, like the example that I gave you with RevSeller and SellerAmp, I think a lot of the tools, I think that's a similar dynamic that happens with a lot of this stuff. Now I've never used Nepeto. I've never used Arbisource. I've used TA for 6 years. So I am familiar with TA. It's fine. Does what I want it to do. It's rolled in with Inventory Lab, and they have that whole Seller 365 suite. I was paying for technical arbitrage and Inventory Lab. So when they rolled everything into the Seller 365 bundle, my expenses were, I think, basically cut in half for my existing tool stack. Nothing changed with my tools, but they were just half as expensive when the Seller 365 bundle came out. That's enough to keep me loyal for a while, and I naturally, I'm finding, being in chats and being in these networks and stuff like that, apparently I look to switch softwares less often than the average person. I just kind of, it works. It's still, affordable for the value that it gives me back. I'm not looking for a new shiny object. I don't need to go try Nepeto, or Arbisource. I know how TA works. I've put in the time for the learning curve, and it functions how I expect it to function, and how pretty much how it's always functioned. There have been bumps in the road, don't get me wrong. Like, there's a lot of people have some sour things to say about several of the tools in that 365 bundle. I get it. But I also haven't heard of an alternative or a competitor that is miles better than what I've got. So I think I think a lot of this stuff is just kind of a lot of overlap is what I'm getting at. And this is far too long of an answer for this question. I apologize, BME. But I check around, ask some questions, get some feedback from people that you respect, people that you trust. Find out what they use, and make sure you give it a fair shake, give it a fair trial. Don't jump from one to another, because you heard one extra feature, that sounded interesting. I wouldn't jump. Make sure you become proficient to make sure that you can accurately assess the value that you're going to get from the tool. that helps. Dank Melon, what is the realistic ceiling of OA? The realistic ceiling so far, it is about $100 million a year. That's the highest that I've seen the ceiling. That was Jassim. We interviewed him. Yeah, from a balls to the wall, I'd say at least 100 million. I don't know if you're asking one person operation. That's obviously a different. He has a bunch of people that work with him. That's a whole operation. Yeah, I mean, technically, Pattern filed an IPO, like they're a publicly traded company now, and they were. You could, well, they were. I mean, wholesale is eventually where they ended up, but I mean, they're essentially arbitragers. That might even be. I don't even know their numbers, but depends on the definition. What flavor, or to what extent are we talking about OA? But I mean, yeah, I've been on a video call with a person doing OA with $100 million in sales. So that's my answer for the ceiling. MOQ. Thank you, Artem. Minimum order quantity. Right? Yep. Deal Hunter, isn't adding the dot to the Gmail email when ordering a workaround to getting the 10% welcome discount? Can be. Yep. Yeah, that'll work. I think for a couple big sites, I've got my email, and then I added plus, and then like 3 letters designating the store, and I know you can do that with Vitacost, because I don't think it was always like that. They were a little more liberal with their code usage, but they kind of tightened up a little bit. And if you're signed into your account, you can only use certain coupon codes so many times, and then it'll start going invalid. And I found that if you sign out of your account and just run your checkout as a guest, but you can actually use your email, add plus Vitacost at gmail.com, right? So that'll still get delivered to your email address, but Vitacost recognizes it as a different email. So then you get another set of uses with the same coupon code. And I don't believe those are logged, because I've been using that 20 SMS code for months and months and months. So I don't think they record that. I think it's not in the database. So they go, well, okay, something like that. But yeah, that's a workaround for a couple different things: coupon codes, welcome bonuses. I don't do the welcome codes. I don't play that game too often. Mostly because I haven't needed to, or haven't thought to do it. I don't know. There are a couple sites now I'm thinking about. There are a couple sites that I would love to be able to get a discount. So there's certain codes that certain sites that they only have like 2 or 3 codes, and they're one-time use, and there's never a discount. But I really need a discount if I want to order, like 3 or 4 ASINs from one store in particular, that if I could just get even 10% off, it would make sense, and I would absolutely place that order. Very super cool guy. Why do OA sellers transition to wholesale? Well, part of the reason is because they're told that's the natural transition. They the people usually the people telling them sell a wholesale course. So they the people selling the course, they fib to these people and say, arbitrage, it's just temporary. It's just a stepping stone to the real business that is wholesale. And you can one supplier, and you can, if you're spending $10,000 in OA inventory, you could spend 25,000 through one relationship with one distributor instead. How much easier is that? And that's the sales pitch, right? Get higher volumes. Don't deal with clearance, and limit your competition, and lower your buy cost. And it's an easy sell. Plus, wholesale takes more money to start typically. So these people selling these courses, they can charge more for the course as well, because they positioned wholesale as the stakes being higher, the barrier of entry and cost of entry is a higher amount, which in turn raises the tuition for the courses that teach it. Yeah, I mean, there are advantages. I mean, I have nothing against wholesale. I'm talking all this smack about the people teaching the courses. That's isolated to the course, the teachers, the unscrupulous ones specifically, right? I don't have anything against wholesale. Wholesale works. All the models work. If we do, that's the key. Everything works as long as we work. PL works too. I talk a bunch of smack about private label as well, but it works sometimes if you get it right. But yeah, so it's a way to expand. It's similar to, it has a similar sales pitch to replens, right? The replens, because replens can be pitched like, here's the most common sales tactic, right? And it's the PAS tactic, right? You have a problem. The P is problem, A is agitate, S is solution. PAS, right? So that's how you sell something. You pitch a problem, and with OA, they're like, oh, are you sick and tired of sitting down at your computer for 3 hours just to find absolutely nothing to buy that's profitable? That's the problem, right? And then as I've told you about the problem, I've agitated it too. Like, oh, aren't you sick of wasting time? And you sit there and you go, yeah. And then the S, they offer the solution. Well, what if I could teach you how you could find one item that you could buy over and over and over again without having to spend hours searching for other products? Wouldn't that sound great? And you're sitting there and you go, yeah, it would. And then they sell you a replens course, or they can sell you a wholesale course. Like, wouldn't it be nice to just call one person, one contact, and be able to order hundreds of units of dozens of ASINs just in one single phone call? Yeah, it would. And then they pitch you a wholesale course, right? So it doesn't matter, a replens course, wholesale course, but it's a sales tactic, right? They're agitating your pain point, and they go, I got a solution. They sell you the solution, right? So that's a lot of it. Some transition to wholesale because they want to expand the catalogs. That's, of course, legitimate. So I don't know. Depends on what you want to do. I don't mind OA. I don't mind RA. I kind of still feels like a treasure hunt. I still get a dopamine hit, when I find a really good product with low competition and good sales. It's like, yeah, I still like that, and I don't mind spending hours looking for products, so But yeah, wholesale, it's a good model too. That didn't answer your question. There's a different angle to the question that you were asking. Let me know. I can expand on it. I got into my anti-guru rant a little bit. Apologies. Are you? I assume you're talking about Mill.com. Is that like the Wayback Machine? Um, Similar, not exactly. Like the Wayback Machine that's websites, and you can actually look at what the website looked like at in the past. Milled is copies of like sales circulars and sales emails. They'll actually show you what was on sale, and you can actually browse. You could browse um, the sale from April 26th of 2022 at Walgreens and see what was on sale and compare that to April 26th of 2023 and 2024, and you can actually see what those emails look like to try to predict and learn the sales cycle with Mill.com. Any websites that track the sales cycles of non-clothing items? Yeah, Milled has non-clothing. That's the first place I would go to. Mr. Jab Yassin, for items that might not have a monthly sold, and we're going based off of sales rank, what's the best way to identify how much or how many times an item sells if drops aren't considered sales? Yeah, I mean, you kind of go, you got to do the old fashioned way, right? Um, you're looking for an EKG style shape on the sales rank, right? You want to see it moving up and down and bouncing between the sales rank. That's part of the evidence that it's selling. You want to also see seller count movement, right? You want to see sellers both coming on and selling out. You want to see movement there. That's another indication of sales. Um, you say drops aren't considered sales. Drops are a measurement of bestseller rank. Like bestseller rank it's still a valuable metric to figure out if something's selling, right? Because we can look up on Keepa, if you want to take the beauty category, you can actually look up the total amount of ASINs in the beauty category on Keepa. And then you can look at the current rank of whatever product that you're looking at. And you can actually see, and most calculators, I know RevSeller will actually give you the percentage of what that current rank is compared to the total amount of products. Like if something's ranked 50,000 in beauty and beauty has 3 or 4 million, RevSeller will tell you that it ranks in the top 0.5% of that category. It's pretty clear indication. I mean, I find that I don't need to know the number of sales per month. I mean, I've kind of figured out how to determine a yes or no. Like, oh, this is moving, this is really moving, and versus this doesn't really sell too much. That's about all I figure out. And so the monthly sold, and even the monthly sold is a bit deceiving, right? Because that doesn't even factor in multiple units, right? You could have a 50 plus sold over the last 30 days. Number one, that's a trailing metric, right? So that's almost 30 days old, that information. Current information could be different, so we can't even take that as gospel. And then it actually, the 50 plus sold is actually the number of visits, not the actual units, right? So you could have something with a 50 plus sold over the last 30-day badge on it that has actually sold 110 units over the last 30 days. It's distinct possibility, you know. But again, that's why I don't need to know the exact number, you know. Like, I know about, based on what I think the velocity is, I know about how much competition I can tolerate, and I can go from there. You know, I don't need that level of precision in order to make smart buying decisions. Put it that way. And it's a little bit. Here's how I look at it. I've never been to Europe, right? However, I could drive a car in Europe if I ever get to go visit it, right? I am 100%. I've never known anything except miles per hour as my speed gauge. If I went to Europe, they use kilometers, right? They do whatever, right? They don't use freedom units like we do. However, so I could be in a car in Europe on one of the roads driving, and I could be going 50 kilometers per hour. I have no idea how fast I'm going, but I can see what the kilometers per hour that my vehicle that I'm driving is going, and I can read the sign that tells me what the speed limit is, what the maximum kilometers per hour are, so I can figure out what speed I can go without getting a ticket, you know, and what I can do safely, all while not having any idea how fast I'm actually going. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of how I approach evaluating velocity for products on Amazon. So, Jill, boy, do I relate on being overwhelmed with software options. I just realized I need to stop looking at all of the SW and just learn Keepa backwards and forwards. Yeah, Keepa is what is it? SW. I'm drawing a blank on SW. Yeah, I find it inspiring, you know, that the people that really have stripped down tool stacks that do serious volume, you know. Sometimes it's easy to get lost. You know, you hear about some cool feature and it's like, oh, you know, you talk to somebody and it's like, oh, they're doing really well with that. And that sounds really cool, you know, and we kind of, sometimes we get caught up in the hype instead of actually evaluating the need for the tool, you know. Shiny object syndrome is it's tough. BME, how many extra tools are you using altogether and at what cost? Jeez. Extra tools. Like I'm not sure what extra tools would be qualified for, but I pay for Keepa. I pay multiple Keepas because my VAs have access to it too. But I pay for Keepa, I pay for a repricer, pay for Seller 365. So that gives me inventory labs. That's my inventory management. Gives me tactical arbitrage, which a couple of my VAs use that every shift. What else do I have? I've stripped down a little bit. It was only a one-time fee, but I have Tactical Expander. I got Source Lens for free with my OAC Plus membership. I pay for Storefront Stalker Pro, the super top shelf edition of that. What else do I pay for? Let's see. I did the one-time fee for OA Buddy. I just bought the lifetime for that. I like that a lot. I don't know. I'm definitely forgetting something, but I don't know. I've been really, I don't add it. I have a sheet that I just kind of, I just hand off to my CPA. So I don't know what the actual dollar figure is. It's a little bit lower than it has been over the last couple of years. Because I dropped Tactical Bucket. Because I wasn't doing X paths through TA or anything like that. I was paying for RevSeller and SellerAmp at one point, but that's been a while. I just had to trim SellerAmp off. I don't know. Yeah, Jassim is a great guy. That was hopefully we have him. Love to have him on again and get an update on what the business is. Still wins. I don't know what Text Now is, so I can't give you an alternative. Sorry. Yep. There's always bigger fish in wholesale, and the investment is high. Yeah, stakes are higher. Potentially bigger payoff, or more consolidated sourcing. But yeah, it's tougher to get into the investment. A lot more to lose if bad buys are much more expensive with wholesale most of the time. Dank Melon, is PL worth it? Asking the wrong person. I honestly, I can't answer that. My opinion of private label has been so tainted by all of the assholes that sell private label courses. There's a collection of private label gurus that pounce at any and every opportunity to say that arbitrage is dead. And I resent that because it's not true, number one. And they're just doing it. They need to say arbitrage is dead so that arbitrageurs think that they're in a business model with a dead end, which is going to make them more likely to buy their private label course. So I don't know. It's made me more reluctant to even think about trying PL. Because I'm not a big fan of the sample of the people who do that kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, hit ratios are much lower than the pro PL people are going to tell you. Like there's a very good possibility that you're going to spend a whole bunch of money on a product that will not sell, or it will get hijacked, or it will have dozens of competitors that look exactly like your product in a short period of time, and you'll be screwed and not be able to make your investment back. Or your idea may not be as good as you think it is or you hope it is, and your product doesn't sell, right? It's a lower batting average. They're not going to tell you that. They're only going to tell you the highlights, the greatest hits, say it's great, and say that I'm stupid, right? Like he's promoting arbitrage. Like that's what a noob, but they got to say that, their motivation is pretty transparent. If it interests you, try it. It works. It can work, right? I'll be honest about that. You got to have the money and a thick enough skin to go for it, and realize that it may take a couple tries, if not more. Very super cool guy. I always thought the definition of replen was a product bought at retail price or with an evergreen code versus sourcing deals, clearance. There's probably a bunch of different definitions, or caveats to what a true replend is. Here's what replens are. replens is just a marketing term. Okay, it's a made up term used to sell replens courses, right? It's the same thing like I told you with wholesale, right? You have to PAS, problem, agitate, solution, right? They're preying on sellers who get frustrated, most of the time new sellers, right? Because new sellers, not only are they not experienced with sourcing, they're also gated in more stuff than a more seasoned seller, right? So there's built-in frustration, right? So they go, what if you could find something at regular retail price, right? Because they want to differentiate themselves. They want to make their technique sound like there's more skill involved than in reality, right? It's just they're just puffing up their product, when they say that. So, but yeah, like just off the shelf, like I mean, that makes the course sound more attractive, right? Like, get out of the clearance aisle. Everybody's in the clearance aisle. What if you could go into the aisle with the least amount of people? What if I told you I could show you something, doesn't even have to be on sale, that you can sell for a profit over and over and over again? Just sit back and collect your money. Sounds great, right? That's intentional. It sounds great on purpose. I don't know. My definition of replen, as far as I'm concerned, my replens are short for replenishables, right? And my inventory, whatever is a replen, whatever is replenishable, is anything that I've bought for a second time or more. Congratulations, you are now a replen. It was me talking to the ASIN because I bought you again. And that's the thing. Replens, you can't. They teach you like how they make it sound like they're going to teach you to go into a store, like there's an actual method to go and find the replen. Like it's some sort of game show or something, and there's some board, like a Jeopardy board or something, and it's like, all right, pick how to steal your money for $600, and that's your replen. I mean, it's not like that. Replens are actually found in your own database. They're the stuff that you tested, and it tested successfully. It was profitable. It moves at the velocity that is acceptable to you. The profit is acceptable to you, and you can go buy it again. Congratulations, you've now got a replen. That's my definition of replens. If somebody wants to try to take some, cockamamie definition that is attached to their course, that's more pomp than it is substance. You know what I mean? Mention EKG. Elaborate on EKG is up and down squigglies versus flatlining, right? And EKG is I don't know what it stands for, but it's the heart monitor, right? It monitors heart activity, and you want your heart to be doing something, right? And then dead is flatline. Like that's, EKG is, zigzag up and down, lots of activity, increasing, decreasing, moving around. That's all activity is what we mean by EKG. If I get behind the wheel in Europe, I'm going to do something wrong for sure. No doubt about it. Karen, I use Profit Protector Pro. That's my repricer. And the number one reason I've used it for years and years and years. And the number one reason that I use it is because I started using it many years ago, and I'm grandfathered in to a stupid cheap price. And it's fine. I've never had a reason. Profit Protector Pro has never given me a reason to explore alternatives. I've been tempted, right? Like we've had Dylan on with Aura. I'd love to try Aura. I'd love to try Seller Snap. Sounds awesome, right? But I don't. It's stupid cheap. Like stupid cheap. Trust me. The yellow line doesn't get enough respect. Yeah, maybe. I do worry that it's going to be too revered, but I don't have evidence that that's the case. You know, that's what I worry about moving forward. Is people take it as gospel, and or people don't realize that so little of the catalog has the yellow line, right? There's something like less than, I think it's less than 4 million products have the yellow line, which means there are tens of millions of products, if not hundreds of millions of products that could have a yellow line. They fit the metric of what the yellow line represents, but Amazon just hasn't rolled out that yellow line for all of the catalog, or even half of it, even just a very small fraction of it. So I worry that people are going to only source stuff that has the yellow line without realizing that there are products without a yellow line that sell even better than the stuff you're choosing to only look at. You know what I mean? But it is fantastic. I to take nothing away from it, it's the closest thing to actual sales data that Amazon has ever given us. But as a representation of, you know, the catalog, the amount of items that have the yellow lines, very, very, very small. I mean, it's basically the equivalent of something being released in Dallas, Texas. You know, it's like, you know, like it's sure it's fantastic, but it's only Dallas. You know, like there's New York and LA and the rest of the country. You know, like that's how small the exposure is for the yellow line. Inventory lab versus seller board. I have zero experience with seller board. I cannot answer that question. I'm not sure it's a X versus X, because I know there are people that pay for both. So I don't think they're true replacements for each other. I think for the way I understand it, there is a lot of overlap. But there are things that Inventory Lab does that Seller Board can't, and there are things that Seller Board does that Inventory Lab can't. So I'm not sure it's quite apples to apples. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. And yeah, it's been over 2 hours. What the hell have I been talking about for all this time? My God, I must be having fun or something. I do got to wrap it up. I only got a few minutes to give my daughter a kiss goodnight before bedtime. So we're gonna wrap this up. What about partnering with local mom and pop retailers and placing large orders? Would that be OA wholesale hybrid? Heck yeah. I think that's a great idea. Did you know that you could actually do that with Walmart if you wanted to? Chris Grant's done it. He just told the story again recently. He said he got to know. I think I know. I think he did it at Walmart. But he tells stories about going into Walmart and talking to the store manager and bringing donuts and coffee and just building a relationship. And sometimes he tells a story as a story, a way to get access to like clearance stuff, but like, hey, look, this is, you glad hand and you try to build a relationship. And then you say, but when you get down to it, you go, this is what I do. I sell on Amazon. I would love to help you clear out some of your clearance items. and free up that shelf space for the better selling stuff and the new stuff that you want to get in there. I'd be willing to, spend so much at whatever interval, or, and then ultimately what you'd love to do is get backroom access to the clearance stuff before it even goes out onto the floor, and then take a bunch of that off their hands, as long as it's profitable, right? Win-win, a win-win scenario would be, you get a bunch of stuff before it even hits the floor. They clear it out. They don't even have to put it in the clearance aisle, right? So you've saved them time and labor, but not having to do that, and right, and you get that situation. But another thing you can do is, he was actually having the store manager at Walmart order cases of stuff just for him, because the Walmart manager, they would just put their orders in, and he got to the point where he had a relationship where he could just tell them, like, hey, I'm looking for X number of cases of this product, blah, blah, blah. And the manager would just add to their order. Like, they're ordering the stuff anyway. So the manager would just order extra cases of stuff for Chris. And then he'd get a call like, hey, truck came in, good to go. And he, go around back or something, load up his extra cases, pay for them. And, just a little bit extra revenue for the store manager, and minimal hassle, So you could actually do that with big box stores too. But yeah, it's a great option with mom and pop retailers. Anybody that like my stepmom runs a hair shop, a hair salon. So, she has access to certain sites in that industry on the wholesale side. There's certain sites, there are a lot of really good sites that have great pricing on hair stuff, hair related products, that only you have to have license. You have to enter your license to even shop at those sites. So the relationships like that works. Yeah, bribe your local manager, dude. Donuts and coffee, man. They're cheap, but they work. So holy crap, I should stop talking. You guys got to be sick of listening to me. Thanks for hanging out. We will. We're going to do this all over again on Wednesday. This show, right? We do twice a week, Monday or Wednesdays and Sundays, 7:00 both times. If you're in OAC Plus, tomorrow night, 8:30, I'm doing the Discord tutorial, and then 9:00 I jump into the other studio, and we're going to do live sourcing every Monday night. So look for that if you're in the OAC Plus. And one way or another, hope to see you there. See you soon. Worst case scenario, be back here Wednesday. We'll have a fresh batch of news and answers to your questions. Have a good night.